Okay, how widespread is this white nose syndrome in bat populations now?
Well, since 2006 till current day, for the past 6 years, it is currently in 21 states in eastern United States and in 5 eastern provinces in Canada. Since it's started in 2006, it has been spreading. It's been very widespread.
So it was zero in 2006, and then all the way up, zero to 21 states, 5 provinces.
Exactly. What that looks like from a North American population standpoint is 5.7 to 6.7 million bats that have estimated died because of white nose syndrome.
When it gets into a certain population of bats, how devastating is it?
It's a very low recovery rate. 75% to 99% of bats do die who have white nose syndrome.
So it could virtually wipe out a population in a given spot.
Exactly. The bat species that are hit most hardest right now are really commonly found bat species, and their populations, when they're hit, particularly in the winter when they're hibernating, it will wipe the entire colony out.
Now, we enjoy the benefits. Sorry.
Why does that matter to bats here in Glacier?
Well, what we see with the spread in 2006, it was quite concentrated between 3 states around New York, and it's in a really relatively small amount of time, expanded to 21 states and then 5 provinces in Canada. I've been told from other wildlife health surveillance operations that it's not a matter of if it comes westward, it's when.
It sounds almost a bit futile, put it that way.
Well, what we can do now is implement us knowing where our bat populations are, us understanding where Geomyces destructans, which is white nose syndrome, helps us manage who goes into the cave system. So, for example, concentrated bleach solution will help to kill white nose fungus. So if we can still allow people in our caves within Parks Canada system, but get them to disinfect their equipment, that will go a long way in preventing the spread of white nose syndrome to bat populations.
Is it more likely to affect populations that hibernate in caves?
Yes. The fungus itself really likes the climate in caves, a constant temperature of around 4 degrees Celsius and relative humidity. So that's where the fungus grows best, exactly where bats like to hibernate over winter.
So you're trying to find out right now if that fungus is here?
We're trying to find out if that fungus is here, and we're also trying to get a really good handle on our bat populations in the caves, if we have bat populations in the caves, and if so, how they use the caves and when.
Someone might look at this and say, well, you're fighting a battle that isn't even happening yet, but I guess you're trying to get ahead of the game.
We're trying to get ahead of the curve. Yeah, so a lot of these areas that were hit hard in 2006, bat populations are fairly understudied. They're nocturnal species. It's only been relatively recently that the economic kind of worth of bats and what they contribute to pest population control as well as pollination has been understood. So we're trying to put ourselves in a really good situation. So because Parks Canada is committed to conservation, we want to put ourselves in a good situation where we can be in front of the ball curve. So we're prepared.
People think of bats as being carriers of disease. They always carry that with them, don't they? Bad rap.
Yeah, they do. North of the southern states, there is a respiratory disease that some bats will spread in the southern states, but typically we don't see that in North America. The bats here do not carry that disease, and just because it gets too cold here. And then rabies is known to be carried by bats, but that is also very rare. I think the annual I can get that information, but I think it's 2 to 3 deaths a year from rabies across worldwide. It's very, very low. So your chances of getting hit by a car are higher than being diseased by a bat.
Why do bats matter? Why should people care about bats?
Why should people care about bats? Well, for one, they are a part of the ecosystem. So they will eat their weight in gold in insects every night. So a lot of pest species that people don't like, mosquitoes, moths, pests that eat crops and agriculture crops, bats are taking out well over their weight in body weight every night. So that's one aspect. Not necessarily in North America, but in desert and tropical areas, bats are major pollinators for agriculture. So your avocados that you get, your bananas, guavas, cashews, those are all here because bats are pollinating them at night. But then the other aspect of that is that bats play an important role in seed distribution as well, in their guano. And then the other part of that is they're part of the food chain. So a lot of smaller carnivores will eat bats, snakes, etc. So they do play a really important role.
So if we lose them, it's a pretty huge hit.
Yeah, well, the recent study by the state's agriculture has figured that bats provide about $3 billion a year in services just for insect control.
Now, what do you know about the bat situation in Glacier National Park right now?
Well, as I said, bats are recently relatively understudied. We have a good knowledge of bats in our forested areas and how they're and in the mycorrhiza as well, but we don't have a lot of information in the cave system, which is why we are doing this research right now.
So you were saying there was 9 species?
There's 9 species of bats that are found in Glacier National Park. 3 species are being recommended for emergency listing under the Species at Risk Act, and 2 of those species are found here. That's the little brown myotis and the northern myotis.
And those are the ones that are affected by white nose.
Yeah, those are affected by white nose.
And yet it's not here yet. So they got their other, obviously, but they have other issues. These little bats, not just this white nose syndrome.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's other threats to bats, include noise, pollution, infrastructure like wind tunnels also pose a big threat to bats as well. But we're in a national park, so they're pretty well protected here from mass mortality, and we'd like to keep it that way, which is why we are doing this research on white nose syndrome and trying to get a better hold of how bats in the area use the cave system.
Can you tell us how long the research goes on for and what the budget is?
Yeah, this research is going to last approximately 18 months. We have to power our acoustic monitoring units with pretty big battery packs, so we have to visit 3 to 4 times to refresh those batteries. We'll be taking the units out. We'll be getting our first recordings in September, October, but we'll be getting a full suite of recordings next July, August, so we'll get a pretty good feeling for what we've got in terms of bat calls. And in terms of budget, we're looking at around $40,000 over a 3-year period. So last year, through a budget through Parks Canada, I was able to get enough money to purchase all the equipment we required, and then through Glacier National Park was able to get the funding, the remainder funding required to actually hire other researchers, get the helicopter time, and get my staff out so that we can.
Are there other cave systems around BC that aren't enjoying this sort of advanced study?
Oh, probably, certainly. Yeah, absolutely. I can't speak for the provincial cave systems and how they're managed, but
do you know that they're doing work in Waterton?
Yeah, Waterton, which is in Alberta. But Jasper National Park is also doing some cave work. You'd have to check with the province on what they're doing, but as I said, white nose syndrome is really raising the profile of bat use all around Canada and North America.
I know Alberta closed a cave a couple of years ago. Yeah.
And how it would generally get, I'm okay, Curtis. It would generally get in there from people having contact with another cave and bringing this specific brand of fungus into the cave, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's spread by spores, and typically what is hypothesized in terms of how it came to North America in the first place is that somebody was caving in Europe, and it was on their equipment, and they brought it to a cave, and the spore was able to take hold of in that area and wipe out that population. Bleach, there are precautions that you can take that you followed. I bleached your boots this morning before you let you in the cave system. So there are some really simple measures we can take with people who are going into caves. Some really elite cavers that I know who travel all around the world are now buying separate equipment for each cave they go into. And they'll leave it at the base of the cave, or they have it labeled. That's because it gets quite difficult to disinfect your ropes, to disinfect your cave diving equipment, to disinfect your wetsuit if you're actually doing some cave diving. So they're going to the level where if you're committed to caving and you don't want to have some of your favorite caves closed because it can't be managed,
they're still spreading.
Yeah. Will you be doing studies in the future? You said you're doing 18 months now. Will you be coming back several years from now to?
That's exactly what we're doing. This is kind of a baseline study, and this is the start of surveillance that we'll be doing for white nose syndrome.
You're pretty lucky here to have such a controlled access.
Yes, we are.
Cave, right?
Well, we're lucky that the caves come through really great grizzly habitat, and so that was originally why the caves are restricted, is because we want to make sure that people are following what they need to follow in terms of respecting etiquette in grizzly country, as well as respecting the delicate cave ecosystems. So, yeah.
So it was already closed.
It's already
and this could change
closed.
it even more.
Yes, it could.